Hello everyone, in this episode you will learn how to center things horizontally using CSS and HTML. For this example we are going to use div tags, but you can use anything instead. And before you do it you should be aware that div has some default properties being set up. For example, the default display property for the div is display block. So with that being said, let's dive into our code. Here I have a basic HTML page with CSS incorporated in it, and I have this CSS opened over here. Also, we have main.js open, but we are not going to use JavaScript in this episode. So let me create a wrapper div, and let me create a div which I'm going to center inside my wrapper div. So the wrapper div, I'm going to give it a class and call it outer in order to distinguish it in CSS. To my inner div, I'm going to give a class of inner. So save it, and let's go to our page. Refresh it, and as you can see here, nothing appears. That is because the default height for div is 0 pixels, so you will see nothing at all. Let's change it. Let's go to our CSS and type outer. Let's give our outer div a height of 20 pixels, and let's give our outer div a background of yellow color. Save it, refresh the page, and as you can see here, we got a nice looking yellow line. That is because we gave it a height of 20 pixels and yellow background. Okay, so now let's style our inner div. Let's go below over here and type height of 10 pixels, and let's give it a background of red. Save it, refresh the page, and as you can see here, now we have a nice looking red line. Right now red line takes up the whole parent. That is because we used div over here for inner element, and what it did is it made our element take up the whole line. If you're not sure about what display property is, I mean display block, display inline block, or display inline, please watch my previous episode. I talked about it already. Here I'm going just to reference it and explain very little. So now, as you can see here, there is actually nothing to center. So let's change the width of this line to something like 30 pixels, and also let's change the display property to inline block. So what it will allow us to do is it allow us to move this thing around as one entity. It is going to take only this chunk of place, and anytime you specify width and height, be sure to set display inline block. Even though deleting the display inline block won't affect our inner div too much, but when we will try to style it with more complicated CSS selectors and properties, you will get a lot of troubles which are hard to debug, which are hard to track down, because what it will be all about is just display inline block. So the first method we are going to learn in centering horizontally is text align center. When you want to apply a text align center property, you just go to your wrapper element and set it a CSS property text align center, and then everything inside it, including any kind of divs, any kind of text, will be centered horizontally. So let me refresh the page, and as you can see here, we got our inner div horizontally centered. Okay. Yeah, that's funny that I confused the verse a little bit. So this is the first method. That's pretty easy, huh? Just assign text align center to the parent element, and all the child elements will be centered. The next method we are going to learn is margin. So let me delete the text align over here. Let me save it. Let me refresh the page, and as you can see here, our inner div is aligned to the left, which is a default align. So now, in order to use a margin method, you should type margin 0 auto. I will explain in just a moment what it means. And here we should get rid from our display inline block. Actually, let's put here display block. And you should know that this is just the default property for div. So this actually line over here won't change, will change nothing for our case. So let me save it, refresh the page, and as you can see here, we got our inner div centered. It is centered to top, but that's fine. That's fine. So this is how this method margin zero auto works. As you can see here, the result pretty much the same. And what happens in this 11th line is, if you don't know what margin is, please watch my previous episode. Here I will talk about margin shortcut. What is a margin shortcut? It tells that our top margin should be 0, and our left and right margins should be auto, which will actually center our element once it has width and display block. So, but if we will get rid of this line in our example, everything will work just fine. That is because the default display property for div is block. So that is the second method. Let me recap it pretty quickly. So you just assign margin 0 auto to the element you want to center. Then you assign display block to the element you want to center. And you should be sure that the element you want to center has a width been specified. Actually, we don't care about height, I believe, but then we will see nothing over here. So let me specify the height of 10 pixels. That's because the height is not used in these calculations. Just the margin is 0 from the top, and that's pretty much it. So the next example I'm going to show you is, so the first example, text-align, will be supported in mostly every browser, even in HTML templates for emails. It will be supported. But margin, on the other hand, supported by most of the browsers, but when you want to style HTML emails, you will have a hard time doing it using margin auto, so you are better stick with text-align center. HTML email templates is a totally different topic. It needs a different knowledge, so I'm not going to tell you more about it in this tutorial, but be sure that when you style HTML emails, use text-align center. When you style something and you can go with margin 0 auto, go with it. And now the third approach which you can use to center horizontally is using a flex box. Okay, so the flex box is actually the whole layout, the whole CSS like framework, but actually it's not framework, it's the whole module of CSS, which allows us to center elements in lines pretty neatly. So for flex to work, let's go to outer and let's specify display flex. And then let's go to justify content and let's type in here center. So let me delete the margin 0. Let me set display inline block. Let me save it. Let me refresh. And as you can see here, we got our element centered. Actually, let's just check that this is what we did and not something else we did. So let me type here flex start, and now our inner div should be aligned to the left. So let me explain what happens. We are assigning display flex to our outer element, our wrapper over here. So what this does, this allows us to use justify content property, which then aligns the content inside our div as we specify. So for example, actually there are a lot of properties, and I think in the next episodes we'll talk about flex. But for now, you should just know that once you want to align an element horizontally, you just use display flex on outer element and justify content center on inner element. And as you can see here, it works. So that's pretty much all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.